Hello family, my name is Chris. I am your Homer Gamer Dad. Wait a minute, that's not right. Let's try that again. Hello family, my name is Chris. I am your Home Gamer Dad. And today we're going to be learning about Power Rangers Heroes of the... Wait, nope, not this one. One more time. Hello family, my name is Chris. I am your Home Gamer Dad, and the past, present, and future are in danger. A nefarious villain is traveling from era to era, causing havoc across the time stream. Luckily, there's a group of time agents ready to stop him, and you are the one calling the shots. Gather your team and get ready to travel across the chronosphere as I show you how to play the true solo variant for The Loop. And when I say true solo mode, I do mean about the instructions that come within the box that talk about a solo variant. The game is a 2 to 4 player cooperative experience, so technically as a solo player, you could just play multi-handed. You could do 2, 3, or 4 agents at one time and treat each one as an individual hand, as an individual person. However, as I said, the rules for true solo mode that do come with the base game slightly, differ from the main rules, and I think, in my opinion, offer a really amazing experience for this game as a solo player. And this is what I want to talk to you about today. This is what I want to show you how to play, and this is what I'm going to be playing in future sessions for The Loop. If you're looking for any particular rules or clarifications about how to play the game, always check the timestamps down below in order to jump to the particular section that you're looking for. These setup and the player turns are pretty much the same as you would expect from multiplayer games. So if you are used to playing the game with multiple people or multi-handed, a lot of this will be familiar for you. But if this is all brand new for you, a lot of this stuff can be translated easily to a 2 or 4 player game outside of the solo game. Solo mode specific rules are also labeled down in the timestamps below, just making it for easier navigation. But with all that said, I think it's time for us to assemble our time-traveling team in order to face the fearsome foe of Dr. Faux, his army of continuously created clones and powerful mechanized machines that he uses to go from era to era in a continuous loop throughout all time. No pressure, but all existence depends on you. The Loop, designed by Maxime Rambourg and Theo Rivere, with art by Simon Caruso, and published by Pandasaurus Games, is a 1 to 4 player cooperative game with light deck building in it. The evil Dr. Faux has built a terrible time machine. With the help of the various clones of himself that he is creating throughout the ages, he aims to carry out his Omniscience 2000 project to become master of the universe. It's up to the time agents to work together and stop him, gather powerful artifacts, and master the loop ability to use them multiple times in impressive chains, defy the Doctor's duplicates, and sabotage his maniacal machine. Working together, it's up to the time agents to destroy Dr. Faux's machine and save all existence. Before I dive on in, I just want to let you know, going forward, I will be showing off components that are only in the base game of The Loop. However, for the subsequent sessions, taking on various challenges that Dr. Faux throws at us, I will be using all of the components from the current 2 expansions for the game, Revenge of Fauxzilla and the Fur Brigade. If you're thinking about picking up either one of these, I do recommend Fauxzilla over the Fur Brigade, only because you get so much more out of it. So put a little line right here, and anything from here to this side is Fur Brigade, and then this side is Fauxzilla. You'll get a lot new ways to play, a lot of new artifacts, characters, things along that ways. But honestly, either of the expansions are great. I like them both. I have them both. They will both be incorporated into playthroughs that happen after this tutorial. Speaking of which, this tutorial will also be setting up the base mission, Sabotage, which is recommended for all new players to start with before going into any more of the difficult missions, like anything on the other side from Fauxzilla, and then the base game has 4 missions, and Fauxzilla has 2 additional missions to it. And with that, let's head on over to the board so we can start setting up Spacetime and our solo mode experience for The Loop. Setup begins by taking the Spacetime board and placing it in the center of the table. If you were playing with 2 or more people, you'd want it in arm's reach of everybody, but as a solo player, just make sure it's close enough for you to get your hands on. Each one of the segments represents a different era of time. Dawn of Time, Medieval Era, Renaissance Era, Industrial Era, Globalization Era, which is apparently where we are right now, Age of Robots, and the End of Times. Time then would loop back to the start of the dawn of time and continue once again. So time is an infinite circle. In the center of the board, you're going to put Dr. Faux' machine. If this is the first time you are playing this game, you're going to have to construct his time machine yourself by snapping together the bottom pieces, the top, and then putting around his face. Dr. Faux should be in the very center of the machine. Place him in the center of the board like so. It doesn't matter which era he's facing because as we continue with setup, that will tell you which one he will be looking at. Around the outside of the board, you're going to be placing mission tiles. The base game comes with 10. You're going to shuffle them together, and then face down, you're going to slowly start slotting them in around the outside of the board. You're going to have extras after this. Those are just removed and put back into the box because they will not be used for this particular playthrough. Within reach of the board, you'll also want to have your different cubes. First, you're going to want your red rift cubes, and then your green energy cubes. The base game does come with 5 blue cubes that you're only going to need for one other particular game mode mission, along with 5 more cubes in Fauxzilla, and the black cubes are in the Fur Brigade. The yellow cubes right here are an addition from my own. They do not come with the main set, but I use the yellow cubes in order to mark progress on missions. In any case, you want to make sure you have all of these cubes close at hand because you're going to be needing them to go on the board. You're also going to want to find the bag of faux clones. There are 28 clone tokens in total that you would punch out from the base game. You're going to shove them into the bag, give the bag a good shake, and leave that to the side for right now. Once clones start spawning onto the board, we're going to be pulling them from the bag randomly, and then they're going to go here to take care of, and once we take care of them, they go back into the bag. So they too will be constantly looped in and out from where they are to any era in time. Off to the side, you're going to want to then set up the HQ board. First, in the top center, you're going to put your game mode tile of the game type you're going to be playing. Again, for this tutorial, we're going to be focusing on Sabotage. This is the perfect one for anyone to start. Your very first game should be Sabotage. Games you teach should be Sabotage. It's a good tutorial and a great way to kind of get a good idea of how the loop plays before adding in any other types of rule sets or special rules that you have to deal with. Sabotage also has a simple victory condition of completing 4 missions, which you're going to see on most of the other missions. And then, of course, it has the defeat conditions. These 3 defeat conditions will be constant through most of the other missions unless specified in the special rules. I will go over these later. In the upper left section right over here, you're going to be placing the huge deck of artifacts. Artifacts are the various items that the time agents are going to find among the eras as they go and try to stop Dr. Faux. Each of the time agents have a 6-card deck that has their symbol in the bottom left corner. None of the cards that feature an agent in the bottom left corner are in the huge deck. These will always just have in the bottom left corner an origin era, and no other icons will be located there. Place your 3 vortex tiles next to the HQ board. I will go over how these function in the game shortly, or you can check the timestamps below to jump right to it. Next, find and shuffle the 7 faux cards that come within the base game, as all of these things do. Shuffle them, and then you're going to place them face down in the leftmost track here, which is considered cycle 1. You're going to draw the top 2 cards from this deck, and now we're going to go back to the Spacetime board. These 2 randomly drawn cards are where the first 2 missions are going to be revealed. So you find their era, and you flip over the tile, revealing whatever it is one of the first 2 missions are that the agents need to complete in order to defeat Dr. Faux. When I go over an agent's turn, I will then explain as well how to make progress with these and then ultimately how to complete them. Once these are 2 flipped over, shuffle these back into the faux deck and leave all 7 cards face down on cycle 1. In the eras that you have flipped over a mission, you're going to take a rift cube and put it in one of the 3 slots that are there. And then in all the other eras where a mission did not flip over, you're going to place 1 energy cube. These cubes, both the Rift cubes and the energy cubes, will be placed throughout the course of the game, but this is just for the basic setup for the game right now. Next, you're going to want to start putting clones and artifacts on the board. There is a chart inside of the instruction book that shows you how many you put out based on your player count. Because this is solo mode, it is technically 1 player, so it's 7 clones and 2 artifacts. For a 2-player game, it's the same number, 7 clones, 2 artifacts. For a 3-player game, it's 5 clones and 3 artifacts. And for a 4-player game, it's 4 clones and 4 artifacts. So what you're going to want to do, and again, we're going to need 7 of these, you're going to go in and you're going to pull out a clone for Dr. Faux. The clones are double-sided. The back of the token shows the era that it starts in, and then the other side shows what clone it is that spawns there. So in this case, this token would start here in the Age of Robots, and once it hits the field, it immediately flips over to reveal that the Renaissance Dr. Faux is now on this side. In order to get rid of this clone, you need to find a way to move it through time until it matches the same era that it is, causing a paradox, and this then gets removed from the board and put back into the bag. So for this sake, we do have this one right here, and then we need 7 in total, so Renaissance for 2, 3, 4. This was done on time. 5, 6, and 7. So that's 7 of his clones on the board. And again, each one of them shows a foe from a different era that you need to move that token to in order to destroy it. You're then going to take the top card from the huge artifact deck, and you're going to see what the era is in the bottom left corner, and that card is going to that era. These are cards, again, that the agents can find along their journey in order to pick up, in order to make their deck stronger and give them better abilities and weapons to take down Dr. Faux. This completes setup for the main board. It's now time to choose our team to determine who it is that we'll be taking with us to try to stop the nefarious doctor. In typical gameplay, each player would choose 1 agent in order to play as in order to go through the game. However, while in solo mode, you choose between 2 to 4 agents to play with. For this example, I'll be choosing 3 agents: Dr. Time, Robo Finisher 404, and Time Prowler. Each agent has an agent tile, a matching token, and 6 artifact cards that shows that same matching agent token in the bottom left corner. What you're going to want to do is you're going to take all 6 of the cards from the agents that you have taken. So in a solo 2-agent game, your deck is going to have 12 cards in it. In 3, it will have 18. And if you have 4 agents, you'll have a 24-card deck of all of the different agent artifacts. Shuffle these together to create a single draw deck that you're going to be using throughout the course of the game. All cards acquired go into this deck on top. I'll go over that a little further when I talk about acquiring cards, but now you're going to take each one of the matching tokens and you're going to place them in their origin era, which is located on their cards. Renaissance for Mr. Time, Age of Robots for Robo Finisher, Globalization for Time Prowler, and each one of the other ones are located in their own unique spot as well. The anatomy of the agent tile breaks down to their name, their origin era, which I already mentioned, the agent's special ability. Sometimes this is once per battle, sometimes it's a passive, other times you have to trigger it another way, so read them to make sure you know exactly what it is. A reminder of their free movement, their charged battery, and the different dimensions that'll appear within their deck. And I will discuss what these dimensions are in a little bit when I talk about the anatomy of a card. One of the actions that the agents can take on their turn is move, and every agent will always have 1 free move in order to do that, so long as your battery is full. Whenever you take the move, you're going to flip your agent cards over in order to represent that you have used that battery and shown that you have taken that free movement. Everything else is the same. At the end of the agent's turn, the battery will recharge and the tile will flip back over, ready for that agent's next turn. When playing the loop, always make sure you read your mission tile carefully, as it may add additional ways to win the game, but generally the way that agents win is by completing 4 missions to destroy Dr. Faux's machine and save all of existence. Losing the game, however, will happen immediately if any of the following conditions happen. Number 1, forced to place a second vortex in a single era. A vortex is pretty much what happens when all 4 of these spots fill up and then a 4th cube drops in. This area is destroyed and a vortex goes in place of it. If a second vortex were to appear here, the game would immediately end. Second way that ends is if you have multiple vortexes around the board and you go to place a 4th one. If you need to place a 4th vortex anywhere on the board, that is an immediate game over. And the final way you lose is if you go through the faux deck for a 3rd time, completing a 3rd cycle through it. If you go to draw a card from here and you cannot, that is also an immediate game over. Some missions might even adjust the losing condition. For example, in Fauxzilla, you're allowed to have more than 4 vortexes on the field. But again, all of that would be covered on the mission tile briefing. So again, be sure to read those closely. However, before we get started with anything at all, we have to determine what agent acts first. So how do you determine who the active agent is? In a 2 to 4 player game, that's assigned randomly and then goes clockwise around the group. For solo mode, you begin drawing from the deck of cards that you created while combining all of the different artifact cards that the agents use into one deck. Each time you draw from it, you're going to look down in the bottom left corner to see if there is an agent figure here, and you're going to take that card and match it with their appropriate agent. You're going to keep flipping through these, matching cards one by one until an agent has 3 cards in their possession. Once an agent has 3 cards, they become the active agent and the round begins. If you go to draw a card and there is no agent in the bottom left corner because you acquired this card through other means, you can then assign any one of the active agents in order to have that card. Thing to note, it is possible for an agent to take multiple turns in a row. Depending on what gets drawn and how the cards are laid out, an agent can go 2, maybe even 3 turns in a row, depending on what cards you feed them and when they get their hand of 3. We have made our selection, who's going to be our first active agent, which is actually the 3 cards I grabbed from Time Prowler. There is a player aid card that also came within the box as well that helps you figure out which one is each. The Faux phase, Action phase, Acquire artifacts, complete missions, and end of turn. So let us go ahead and start with phase 1, the Faux phase. The Faux phase has 2 parts to it: adding clones and artifacts to the board, and then drawing the top card from the Faux deck, moving him to that era and dropping Rift Cubes. To the board, you're going to add however many clones that are showed here. So for phase or cycle 1, you have 1 token. Cycle 2 is 2, and cycle 3 are 3 tokens, but each time you'll also only add 1 artifact from the board from the huge deck. Remember, you flip it over and you look at whatever era is in the bottom left, and that's where that card goes. That is the era that that card sits at. And then the same with drawing from the clones. You just reach your hand into the bag, grab a random 1, you see what era it goes to, and then what era you need to send it to in order to destroy it. And then finally, you're going to want to go ahead and flip the top card of the Faux deck, and you're going to be sending him to the era that's pictured here. So according to this card, Faux is going to the Renaissance era. What you want to do is rotate his time machine around until the middle ramp is lined up with the era on the card, in this case, the Renaissance era. There are markings around the board that link directly to each era that help you line up the machine. You're then going to look at the card and see that it's going to be 2 Rift Cubes plus 1 for every clone within that era. So we look at the era and we have only 1 clone in there. So we're going to be taking 3 Rift Cubes and we're going to drop them in 1 by 1. And then however they fall, you place them in their appropriate spots, causing rifts throughout time. This is actually how vortexes are formed. If you happen to drop Rift Cubes into the center and 4 or more land within a single era, then a vortex happens within that spot. First thing that happens is you remove all Rift Cubes from the era that has formed a vortex. You then remove the mission tile from the top of the era. If the agents were in the middle of completing it, they lose all progress to it. It is completely destroyed and removed from the game. You would then replace it with a vortex tile right up top. Energy, clones, and agents are unaffected by the vortex, but if there happen to be any artifacts in here, they would immediately become destroyed, and from here on out, any other artifacts that would go to this era are immediately destroyed. Once an era has a vortex, there is no way to remove it for the rest of the game. You just kind of have to deal with it. Furthermore, if 4 more rifts happen to find their way into that era, and that is 4 or more, then that, as I mentioned before, is one of the immediate game over conditions. Thing to note, if you wish, you can play a slightly harder game by flipping over a vortex tile in order to reveal a mega vortex. These function basically the same way as regular vortexes, except that if an agent ends their turn on an era with a mega vortex, that's an additional immediate game over condition. However, one of the agents, V-Girl, her special ability is you can end your turn on a mega vortex. So if you wish to play with mega vortexes, V-Girl may not be a bad agent in order to bring with you. Just to point it out again, if a card is destroyed, it actually goes over to this side of the board. However, now that the faux card has been fully resolved and the agents haven't lost, the card is placed face up near the HQ board and kept track of throughout the course of the game. Faux generally will only visit each location once, so knowing where Faux has been will help the agents plan their next move in predicting where he's going to end up, and so this way they can get rid of any cubes or clones in preparation for Faux's arrival. Now that phase 1, the Faux phase, is over, it is time for phase 2, the action phase, where the agent takes their turn and goes around the board getting rid of rifts, clones, and other things along that ways. The agent can perform each of 3 actions as many times as they are able to on their turn, but remember, you must first completely resolve an action before starting another one. Action 1, move. You can spend 1 energy from the era an agent is in order to move to an adjacent era, removing the energy from the board and then placing the pawn in the spot you wish to remove. Always remember, you do have 1 free move from your card. You just flip it over in order to use your battery, and you're able to move your agent to an adjacent era. Action number 2, using artifacts. When an agent activates the effect of an artifact, the card is tilted sideways and the card is resolved. 1, in the order that's written on the card, and then 2, you must resolve as much of the ability on it as you're able to. If an agent can only perform 1 particular part of the card, it can still be played. The cards do a variety of different things, so for the Time Prowler, we can play Boxer's Glove to push 1 of these clones to an adjacent era, say she moves it here. Then she can use the Digital Watch to add energy. Energy can be added to the next era, which in this wording case, next is always chronological, so it would go to the Age of Robots. She can then use her free move, the energy here, or even the Prowler's Coat, because the Prowler's Coat enables her to move as well. She wouldn't do that. She would actually probably use her free move here to get that move in order to move herself to the Age of Robots. Both of these cards have now been used, so they are rotated sideways in the exhaust position, meaning that they cannot be used again unless the agent does the 3rd action, a loop. Looping is an agent's secret weapon in order to defeat Dr. Faux. This ability enables that agent to re-ready cards that have been exhausted, so this way they may be used again. To do a loop, you have to spend 1 energy in the era that you're in, and then from your exhausted cards, you pick 1 dimension to unexhaust. The dimensions are the different symbols that are on top of your cards. The only dimension that cannot be recovered during a loop is a black hole, a card with a pure black icon in the corner here. So for this example, let's say the Time Prowler decided to use this energy in order to loop the spirals, making it available to be used again. She will then exhaust it 1 more time to push 1 clone to an adjacent era, moving 1 of these to the end of time, matching the symbol and just destroying it from the board. If there happen to be 2 energy remaining within this era, the Time Prowler could loop again. You're allowed to loop as many times as you want, but each loop is going to add 1 more energy. So a second loop will cost 2 energy, third will cost 3, 4 will cost 4, etc., etc., etc. So in this case, she'd be able to spend both of these energies to again re-loop the Brawler's Glove to use it again to push this one over 1 more time and destroy 2 of his clones in one go. Anatomy of an artifact card. Breaking down an artifact card, starting with the dimensions in the upper left corner. Again, there are 4 dimensions within the game: spirals, stripes, stars, and black holes. It is worth mentioning really quickly that if you have Fur Brigade, they do introduce an additional symbol for the cards, and that would be this explosion symbol here. Basically, this means that once you use the ability on this card, the card is gone from the game forever. But I'm just going to point that out right now. These are not, this symbol right here is not in the base game. Otherwise, that on every card, you'll find the artifact's name, the image that represents them, the abilities that they put out, and in the bottom left, you'll see their origin eras. And then also you'll see a symbol for any one of the time agents that this particular artifact belongs to. And the last thing you'll notice are these quick reference icons on the side here. These pretty much represent a quick glance at what the card does. Something with energy, destroying rifts, pushing, something to do with clones, anything along that ways. So when you look at the card, you can kind of get a quick glance over what its powers are, and then you read the actual ability for the card in order to figure out how it is it works, functions, and how you could use it in order to really take down Dr. Faux. On the agent's active turn, besides trying to put out any fires that they have, they should also really try to prioritize moving along the missions that are available to the team. The examples that we have here for this particular game are patch up Spacetime, remove a rift from 7 different eras. If the Time Prowler was able to say remove the rift from this zone here, she'd be able to take a marking cube and match it to the era that she's in. So now she doesn't have to worry about removing a rift from this era in order to move this mission along. However, that does mean that the other eras need to happen as well. In the base game, it's recommended you just use the rift cube that you remove in order to track your progress here, but I like kind of just using my own different type of, marker in order to see what it is that I need to do. So that's the only reason that that yellow cube is there. Again, the yellow cubes do not come with the base game. I just use them for my own markings, but you can use the rift cubes or the energy cubes in order to track your progress. Time Prowler has gone around the board, destroying clones, getting rid of rifts, progressing all types of missions. She has now come to the end of her turn. Because she is in an era with an artifact on it, she can then go into phase 3, Acquire Artifact. The player would look at what artifacts are available within this era, choose one, and then place it on top of their draw deck. This does not go into the discard pile. It will be the next card that they draw. If there happen to be 2 cards in the particular era, then the player would choose one of the 2 of them in order to put on top of the deck and leave the other one there for the next agent to maybe pick up along the way, or worst case scenario, it may get destroyed if this completely goes with 4 rifts and becomes a vortex. Also, if an agent ends their turn on an era with no artifacts in it, they skip phase 3 and move right on to phase 4. If an agent ends their turn in a space where a mission is not revealed or not completed, then they skip phase 4 and move right on to phase 5, end of turn. However, if they end their turn in a space where a mission is completed, that they have made all the progress that they could, then they choose to complete the mission and score it for the endgame victory. To do this, they just simply remove all of the progression cubes from the mission and then take the mission tile and place it to the side. Counting up to however many that they have, they need 4 in order to declare a victory. In addition to that, they're allowed to draw artifacts from the huge pile, 1 artifact plus 1 for every player. So if you're playing 2 players, you're drawing 3 of these, 3 players are drawing 4, 4 players are drawing 5. But because this is solo mode, you are playing this as if you were only 1 player, so you draw 2 cards, you look at them, you pick one of them to keep going on top of your deck, whereas the other one goes to the discard pile and the HQ board. Thing to note is that this era can still get a vortex on it. If it does get 3 rift cubes and a 4th one is added, a vortex will still go here. And remember, furthermore, after that, if a vortex is here, no more artifacts are allowed to go to this era. They are immediately destroyed. The last phase, phase 5, is the refresh phase. The agent recharges their battery. If it's used, all cards that they used for their turn are placed into a single discard pile over to the side. And if there are no more cards in the faux deck, then they are combined back together, reshuffled, and placed onto the next cycle. Then the player goes back to their single deck and starts dealing out cards to the agents once again. Remember, if it does not show a particular agent down on the bottom, they can assign it to any one they want. Also, agents can take multiple turns in a row if they manage to get all 3 cards lined up once again. But as soon as another agent has 3 cards, then the cycle of the faux phase, action phase, acquire artifacts, complete missions, and end phase happens again. Play will loop like this over and over again until either a victory condition or a defeat condition has been met. Dealing cards to determine active agents, all the different phases, completing phases, and then finally the refresh phase, and then starting it all over again. The last thing I do want to just talk about really quickly are notes of wording. When a card refers to the next era, it means forward in time. I mentioned before, but I figured I'd bring it up again. Previous is the era that came before it, so going back in time. The end of time and the dawn of time are connected, so they do jump back and forth between each other. When an artifact says to reveal a card, you reveal the top card of the huge deck, do whatever the original card says, and then the card that you revealed goes into its origin era on the board. To pull a clone, you move it from an adjacent era towards your agent, while pushing a clone moves it to an adjacent era away from your agent. And for those, you can go either forward in time or backwards in time. And finally, anything that says for you to acquire an artifact will always go on top of your draw pile, permanently adding it to your deck. And there you have it, how to play the loop in the true solo variant mode. And again, there's really not that much difference between this compared to the standard game, but combining all of the agents' decks into one and having way better control over who goes next and what agents get what cards is a great new way to play, and definitely something I recommend to anybody out there that plays this game by themselves, or even just to maybe show it off to somebody that way, you know, because you can. For an easier game, I would start with only using 2 agents. If you want a harder game, definitely go all the way up to 4 in solo mode. I personally like 3 as the sweet spot. That's like the one that I'm most comfortable with. But again, this game has so many different ways that you can play. There's always going to be a fun new way to loop back into it and try something different. Thank you all for watching this how to play of the Loop solo mode variant. I hope this helped you out in your games, gave you a better idea or understanding about how the solo mode works for this amazing game. If there are any corrections or things that I need to change or add or whatever, I'm going to have a pinned comment down in the comment section below. But of course, if there's anything you wish to know further, any additional rules or questions or any other comments or whatever, I would love to hear them as well. Leave them down into the comments and I will get to them as soon as I can. I am really looking forward to playing this for you guys. I have a lot of great ideas about what I want to do for the next few sessions because, again, I have this along with the 2 current expansions that are out. Mixing everything together makes for a wild time. That means in order for you not to miss any future, past, or present time traveling, looping action, or any other fun videos I have to put out for you to enjoy, be sure you are subscribed to the Home Gamer Dad. If you wish to support the channel even further, there are ways to do that down in the description section below. Memberships here on YouTube, Patreon, super thanks, all kinds of awesome things along that ways. But of course, your view, your like, your comment, your shares go a long way to help building up the Home Gamer Dad family and making more time agents to stop Dr. Faux from messing with the time stream. Thank you all once again. Always remember, no matter where you are, no matter when you are, always take care of yourselves and each other. We are family forever, gaming together, united as one time agency in order to stop Dr. Faux, in order to have a bright, beautiful future. You guys have a good one, and I will see you in the next one.